let's start on the podcast here. Now, I saw that it was announced back in September. How long did you have to keep it a secret that you were launching a podcast for?
You know, it really wasn't like that. It was so funny. I was asked by the CEO of Nacelle, Brian Volk-Weiss, who is absolutely the most wonderful CEO I've ever worked with. Um, he wanted me to do this. It was his idea, and he had to convince me. I said no twice before. Finally, well, it was also because a dog dared me to do it, and I went, okay, screw you, I'm doing it. And so if he was kind of like, "Okay, when is she gonna say yes? Come on." And I said yes, and it was like, boom, it was announced, and I'm like, "Okay, I guess, there's no turning back now." And
Wow.
then yeah. But, it was totally his idea, and, I guess that's something about me that I've started to learn about myself. Someone comes with a wonderful, bowl of delicious pasta, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, why are they offering this to me?" I'm looking at the negative instead of like, "Oh, that smells great. I think I'll try a bite." It's like I'm like, "Okay, what's the bad side of this?" So when I started doing it, it really was fun, and it was through the pandemic. I've got 14 in the can. um but these are my friends, and I was finding my way, you know? I wasn't always using my good voice that I do narrations and things like that.
Right.
A lot of times, I would find myself talking like that, and having to
Natural. Yes.
and having to listen back to it was like, "Oh my god, that's excruciating. Gates, please, go to your better voice, please." But, I've learned about every single person. I've learned something I didn't know, even though I've known these people for a long time,
Hmm.
and I'm having, so much fun doing it. They're great people. If they weren't such great people, that might be another thing, but
Right.
they're great.
Do you remember the first podcast that you were super aware of, or at least tried listening to?
Of doing my own or just in general?
Just in general, if you said, "Hey, Darren, what was the first one that you really got into?" A friend or two had podcasts that I checked out, but I think the Adam Carolla podcast was the first time where I heard it and went, "Wow, this is a real thing. This is the new radio. This is great." Do you have any recollections like that?
Um, you know, I don't know if it was exactly like that. I feel that I've always been drawn to things that are like the New Yorker has had some incredible podcasts about things, the New York Times as well. Things where it's really been investigative reporting as well as talking with experts. And some of them are serialized and some not, but really, really amazing uh, information and opinion and interviews. So I've loved that. I've also always been somebody who loved storytelling things. So I listen to The Moth, I listen to things like that. And there's Life, what is it? There's a couple of new ones on KCRW that I listen to every Saturday, but I can't tell you their names sadly, but they are really Life Examined. That's one of them.
Okay, yeah.
And it's really great and I love it. So yeah, I do. I don't listen to nonstop podcasts like my son does. My son is like always listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is I just always have left either the headphones and I'm in a crowd, but now I am determined to start to listen to them when I travel, when I start to travel again, because it's the best thing in the world, to have that. Um, so anyway, yeah, but there's so many great ones out there, and I've
Yeah.
loved the ones where people I haven't listened to as many of the ones that are just conversations, or there was one between chefs that was they were talking so fast, it was hard actually for me to follow it.
Talking
Um,
shop, yes.
yeah, but so when I was editing, because I learned how to sound edit, and then the studio, they then double check my sound editing, and they make it sound even, cleaner. But I can see how if you take out certain things, it helps the flow. It helps the flow. If you hear everybody clear their throat and do all these things, it just kind of right?
Your ums, your ahs, your
Yeah, yeah.
plosives, etc. Wow. your journey, granted, I don't have Brian producing or working on my podcast. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him. What an incredible director and businessman and creative person in general.
Right? I
But
know.
when I started doing it, I was thinking of, well, do I really want someone else editing my voice? And that, okay, I'll do it. And the first time or two you listen to yourself, it's agony.
Agony. Agony.
And then, like the 12th time you do, you go, oh, well, it's not fun, but I can tolerate myself. Around what episode did you start to be able to listen to yourself and go, this isn't the worst?
Well, we're still working on it. I sort of think of it as my Sartrean hell, or the existential dilemma of having, to do something I like, I have to go through this this existential hell of listening to myself and like, who is that woman? Can we just get rid of her? It's a great podcast without her. But I think going into it, and Brian said, "Look, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't." And that's the attitude I need to bring to it, because if we aren't going to try something, and if we're only worried about failure, I never would go forward, because I've done so many things that have just dropped into my lap, like teaching all those years. I didn't go out looking for the jobs. It just happened. And then once you're in that thing, you have to make a choice to get out of that and go back to do something else. But life is that way. And I'm just one
Yeah.
of those people. I don't go, I want to be a podcaster. It just happened, and I want to do the best I can, and I'm loving it.
Well, for the record, I love your voice. There's nothing wrong with your voice to my ears. And it intrigues me, though, that you've been in the public eye for like 35, 40 years, whatever the number is, and still you have trouble watching yourself or listening to yourself.
Absolutely.
Blows my mind. For me, I've only been editing my own interviews for like 3 years. But when I listen to stuff that I didn't say 2004, it's agony. It's terrible. I was that bad. But that's so intriguing to me that you're still self-conscious about that.
Well, part of it is I am actually an introvert. And so but I was someone who was also pushed to perform all my life. Okay. So I can go into this, oh, I have to keep things going. I have to keep asking the question. And I think that's what I notice the most about myself. I think it takes much more experience to sort of go, it's all right. There can be silence gates, because you can edit that together. It's
Yeah.
okay. And so that's what happens. And this can happen even publicly for me. If I feel any kind of a pressure to be in the performance mode, I start like either talking too much or talking too fast, when I can actually just be myself. And like the way I talk with friends, it's just a different rhythm. So that's my goal, is to try to make that, find that rhythm or something. But I think occasionally I do shock myself and go, "Oh, that actually sounded interesting, Gates. Good job." 1 out of every 5,000 things. Good.
That again, this is so intriguing to me. And combining the Friends beat with the podcasting kind of beat, one of the cliches, not the word, but one of the commonalities of celebrities who do podcasts is they hit that point where they realize, hey, you did me the favor of being on my show. Now, eventually, I'm going to have to do your show and your
Right.
show and your show. So if
Right,
you
right.
have 12, 14 episodes in the can, that's maybe 12 to 14 different podcasts you have to do now. Has that hit you yet?
Well, that starts to hit you. But you know what? At least with the next gen people in particular, I mean, we really are close. And yes, my friends did it. They did it for me. They didn't do it because they felt they needed another podcast. But we support each other that way. And that's really such a gift of doing the show. And I also am very close to several people who are in other series, because we've spent a lot of time where we see each other, and we, have done cruises where we're hanging out and
Right.
sharing meals, and you get to know people, and then you go over to their house, or they come over to your house. It's great. I feel very close to several people, people like John Delancey. I mean, you know, and I certainly adore my space son. Um, I mean, really, he's a spectacular human being, and I feel really privileged to know him. And I feel that way about all my friends, actually. They're really great people.
I can only really think of 5 to 10 different industry or show kind of brands that have what Star Trek has in terms of there's other casts, but the second that you meet somebody from another cast, you go, I know what it's like. It's you guys, it's Saturday Night Live, it's being in WWE and professional wrestling. Like whether you're wrestling in
Yeah,
1987 or 2012, you're like, I
that's
get it.
funny. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
It's really
it's
true.
it's this fraternity or sorority, whatever you want to call it, of people
Yeah.
who've
People who
been
have
there.
That's right, who have to are dealing with a franchise, are wearing spacesuits, are, you know, having to learn how to do the transporter and the special effects, and it is I don't know, I'm very happy to be part of it. I had no idea when I first was on the show, no idea, and I was very frightened of the whole thing, but, again, I that's just the way I am. I'm learning
Yeah.
that it's time to change and embrace. That's my new motto.
but but it's incredible that that's not the only franchise that you've been part of that matters, that people are still talking about. My wife is a diehard fan of Labyrinth. She just
Oh,
said,
boy.
hey, did you know it's the 35th anniversary this year of the release? And you go, yeah, okay. uh, do you any idea if there's anything big coming up officially, because 35 is kind of a big number?
Well, I haven't been asked. I'm sort of out of that loop, but, it was almost a full year of my life. It was 9 months or so, and, yeah, I mean, I think looking back, I was in such a whirlwind. I had never done such a huge film project as choreographer. I had done smaller things, and, so I was learning about just production and all sorts of things. There was such a learning curve that it was a whirlwind, and I feel looking back, I go, "Oh, I wish I'd had more time," you know? Maybe I would have hung out tried to hang out with David Bowie or something, but it was like just it was about, "Gosh, I gotta get my responsibilities to get that scene up and ready, and we gotta do this, and then the goblins things has to happen," and, there was a lot of that happening, but he I mean, what an extraordinary artist, and he really was the real deal and so down to earth and unpretentious. I mean, that was the thing about him. He was curious, very smart, wanting to try stuff, not afraid of looking dorky or slipping or whatever. He was really chill. That I remember, and many people aren't that way. They don't want you to see them be awkward for a second, but he was game. He was trying to do all these things that were because I was so naive. I was trying to make the Goblin King's disappearances actually seem impossible, and we did them as if it was a theater production, and I
Mhm.
would have other dancers cover, and you would not know how he got from one place to the other. And then I was like, when they started editing, I'm like, "Oh my god, I didn't have to work that they could have just edited," but it kind of was, like, sad for me because it was truly magical the way we had worked on it, and he was game for all of it, like, bending way down and trying to do all these things. It was a cool scene. I love that scene.
Totally has nothing to do with anything. But my favorite thing that I've ever heard about David Bowie is in the last years of his life when he was living in New York City, he was totally going in public, not with a hat, with glasses. You could go, oh, that's totally David Bowie. But he was always carrying a Greek newspaper, a Greek language thing, because people look at him and they'd see a newspaper in Greek and they go, oh, that's not David Bowie.
Oh,
He's
that's funny. That's funny. I never read that. That's really funny.
Yeah, absolute genius. So, hey, back to you. Rather than just talking about what a genius David Bowie is, how great Star Wars, why did I say Star Wars? Star Trek fans are. That was the cardinal sin to say
I
both.
know. I love you see, that's so wonderful. Now that was your clown moment. Like your pants have
I,
gone down.
I
Okay.
have to admit, I've never seen a Star Trek movie. When they said, hey, you're talking to Gates, ask Gates things that she hasn't been asked for. I said, don't worry, not a Star Trek fan. People in my life are diehards. I don't do the sci-fi thing, but I respect the work ethic and the
Cool.
detail,
Cool.
and cool people like it, like Brian, etc. But back to you here. You said before, there's nothing that you say, I'm going to do this, this is my goal. But is there a field you haven't yet conquered that you're still hoping to do?
Yeah, neurosurgery. I'm thinking of I'm hoping by maybe next spring I'll be able to do surgery in my garage. It's just something I've always had on my bucket list. No, actually, there's one thing that I did do that was on a bucket list, and that was I was artistic director of a theater, and I built a theater in LA. I sold all my Star Trek memorabilia to do it, by the way. But
Wow.
that was something where I had always wanted to do it, and there were things that I didn't know. I wish I had been able to do that when I was in my 30s instead of, late in my life because it was really hard. It was nonprofit, and nonprofit is all about raising money. Oh my God, But I
Solicitation.
yeah, but I was able to do some of my favorite things that I've ever directed and with brand new writers, not brand new writers, brand new scripts, new material, and I do love that. I really love the creative process, even if it's a creative new interpretation or something. Um, I love actors, I love dancers, I love singers, painters. I love the performing arts, visual arts.
Sure.
That's my bag.
Well, two quick questions and then you're free. And the first one, I couldn't figure this out through just Googling you. Do you have a favorite band or favorite musical artist?
Well, Nirvana was a big one for me, but that's no longer. I love the
Although there have been a ton of posthumous releases. In fact, you
yeah.
could say more from Nirvana came out after Kurt passed than while he was alive.
Yeah, yeah. But I also like groups like the Kronos Quartet. I have a very broad range of music that I like. I also have, um, like, I collect ethnic music from all over the world whenever I travel. I really, really like music of all kinds. I think the type of music I like the least is pop, actually. I like heavy rock. I like the German, um, um, what's their it
Rammstein?
yes, I have all of their albums. I love them. Uh, eh, and I've used them in productions, where I'll it just and it can be a juxtaposition, something really like heavy
Yeah.
metal, and it's a totally different sort of theme you would think in the play, but the words actually are what's happening in the play. So I don't know, I love all kinds of music like that. So I don't have just now one favorite band. There's so many I like. I mean, Nick Cave and the Bad Seed. Yeah, I can't wait to hear Marianne Faithfull's new album that's coming out. That sounds so rocking awesome. I love rap big time. I used to drive, uh, you know, kids to school, and I wanted the rap, and they just did not want it on, because they were like 5 and 6, and I'm just loving it. I collect a lot of French rap from that comes out of Marseille. Really awesome groups there.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I really mean it. I really love it. So anyway,
Sounds like
maybe
a second podcast. Assuming this goes well, you'll have your music one where you're
uh,
spinning records.
you know what? That has been on my bucket list. Honest to God, I researched and almost signed up for a class. I have always wanted to be a DJ in a certain way. I thought
Wow.
I had this thought of doing this show that is almost like DJing your life, and I wanted to learn how to do the skills. I love things like that. I'm pretty wacky. You
I'm
know,
not saying wacky. I'm saying, well, look at how much stuff is behind me. They give me
I
crap all the time for the pop culture. But my last question, being mindful of your time here, is: do you have a TV show that you could recommend to somebody who needs a new show to start? I
yes,
mean,
yes, yes,
oh,
yes, yes.
okay.
Oh, The Bureau. It's
The
a
Bureau.
French show. It's so awesome. And I mean, I've loved Babylon Berlin, but The Bureau is like one of the best shows I've seen in years. It's you have to go I think you get it on Amazon, and then you have to do something else. They hook you for the last 2 seasons. It is so worth it. And characters that you start and you go, "Oh, I don't like that character." By the end, you've totally done 180. You are never ahead of that show, and that's one of my things that I use because 'cause I'm ahead of most shows that I watch. I'm like, "Okay, that person's gonna do this," even if it's not a mystery, but that show, never ahead of it. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. Okay, that wasn't on my radar. That's going on our list. Thank you so much for your time. May 12th
You are welcome.
is the launch date, correct?
Yes, it is.
May 12th. Looking forward to everything that's to come, and just keep up all the greatness you got going there, Gates.
Thank you so much. You're so nice, Darren. Take care.
Paltrocast.